so we can share it out with anyone who's not able to be here. So thank you guys for jumping on. I know people are going to kind of come and go a bit, but just want to give everyone a quick overview of iReady and answer any questions. So format, hoping I can share everything I need to share by 2:45. And then I'll turn off the recording. If you have questions while I'm presenting, feel free to drop them in the chat box so we don't lose them. And then I'll stop recording and you can ask questions. So big picture, you're going to give 3 tasks in kindergarten. One is the iReady diagnostic that your kids will be taking on their iPads. For kindergarten only, we're suggesting that you give this in small groups. And so I've asked building admin if a reading specialist can push in. So you have a reading specialist, an LTA, and you, just because the logistics of not necessarily having a 5-year-old use an iPad, because we know they can do that, but getting them onto the iReady platform and in the right place and making sure their headphones work and all those pieces, we have the manpower to get more people in your classroom. So I'm going to suggest that you have kids, in groups of like 4 or 5. Sit down and take this with you. They don't have to be in that small group. That kid that walked in on the first day and, was halfway to finishing their college degree, you can have them take it independently if you want to. So it's up to you. But recommendation for the fall, don't give it whole group. We can start that in the winter. So the diagnostic is supposed to take about 25 minutes for kindergarten. I would probably set aside like 2 20-minute time periods so they're not sitting and doing it all at once if you don't feel like they can sustain that amount of time. You will also be giving 2 of the literacy tasks that are in the iReady portal. So I'm going to walk you through and show you those. But the 2 that kindergarten are going to take are letter naming fluency and then the RAN object naming. The RAN technically is an add-on dyslexia screener that only some students need. But when we met with iReady, they recommended that everyone just go ahead and take it, even though it's not required. So it's required for some. We're just going to give it to all. It's not a bad assessment of rapid naming fluency. So we go ahead and get that data on all kids. It won't cause you to have any more kids who need a reading success plan, because in order to qualify for a reading success plan, they would have to flag on the RAN and something else. So if they didn't really need the RAN, they already haven't met the criteria. They're not going to need a reading success plan. So I am going to jump over to my iReady dashboard and walk you through the 2 components that you will give online. You'll also have your LTAs helping you give these, so it won't just be you giving these one-on-one to your class. Between the 2 extra tasks, the letter naming fluency and the RAN, each one should take about 1 minute. So really it's probably, I would give both to students when they come over like we used to do with FastBridge. It's probably going to take about 4 minutes per student. So realistically, probably 2 days of you and an LTA, and you can knock those out pretty quickly. So when you're on your iReady dashboard, you're going to want to go to Assess and Teach and make sure you go down to Assessment. All of your reading diagnostic lives here, just like it does for math. But for these 2 add-on tasks, you're going to come over to literacy tasks and click on reading, which is the only option. You want to make sure that it's set at benchmark and set at administration. And then if you need to, you can select your school and all that information. I'm just going to pick a random classroom. So school, teacher. The one thing that I don't think it's complicated, but the one thing that is a little bit extra about iReady is it lists all of the subtests. So you need to know which ones to pick. However, you can't really go wrong because the tests the kids need are assigned on the back end by us over here. So if you pick the wrong assessment, you can't actually go ahead and give it to kids because it's not assigned to them. So you don't have to worry about if you pick the wrong one, go into the right one. So the first one, letter naming fluency, mixed case. You need Form 1 because it's the fall. And then as soon as you select it, If you have actions pop up next to your kids, that means the test has been assigned to them. The resources you might need are here in PDF form. So the student form is the primary thing that you'll need. If you want to practice before giving it to kids, you can also just walk through this digital administration practice module just to kind of get familiar with all the pieces and parts. And then there is a teacher form that we're not using. It's actually a marking form to do it on paper pencil, and we're just going to administer it digitally. So to give the assessment, when I click on actions, we are going to administer the task digitally. The kids don't do anything on a device. That just means, just like FastBridge, we are putting the data into the platform rather than marking on paper pencil and then going back at a different time and putting the data in. So you're going to administer it digitally. I'm going to walk through the practice just so you can kind of see how it goes. So when you go in, you're going to be able to print materials here too. I'm also just going to email you after this call with all the print materials that you need, as well as the kindergarten specific guidance that came out from Desi and from iReady. So materials are here. The materials that you will need for letter naming fluency look like this. So the first page is like a teacher recording form. You will not need that. Page 2 is the student practice page, and page 3 is the student administration page. Yes, it is okay to use like a blank sheet of cardstock or whatever as a guide. We're not really assessing return sweep. We're assessing students' ability to name letters quickly. So don't worry if you need to just like use a guide for kids to go through that. It's going to walk you through how to give the task. For timing and scoring, you're going to have a 60-second timer that's going to be on your screen. Mark any errors, so click the letter if a student misses it. Self-correction is not an error. 3-second wait time. So if a student doesn't give the correct response within 3 seconds, you're going to tell them the correct response and prompt them to keep going and then mark it as wrong. The only discontinue rule is if there is a major disruption or some sort of scoring error, really major disruption. There's a, fire drill or, something happened, you have to get up and leave the table. And then we would reset the test. Otherwise, we're not going to discontinue or stop the test in any way. As you go through giving it to kids, it tells you exactly what to say and exactly what to do on each screen, each step of the way. So here's what you say, here's what you do. The one thing that came up, several LTAs have reached out to me, there is a student practice. Kids are supposed to practice this once. If they get them all right, go ahead and proceed. If not, you can give them the right answers and they can practice up to 3 times. It says, I don't love the wording on this. It says practice up to 3 times until the student has correctly named all the letters. I've already gotten questions. What if kids can't correctly name the letters after the 3 tries? The answer to that is we have to have the data to submit to Desi. Go ahead and start the assessment. And that will just, they're kindergartners. They're not going to name all 10 of those letters from the beginning of the year, most likely. A lot may, some probably won't. So don't stress yourself out. If you practice 3 times, they still don't have it, go on to the next screen because you have that 3-second rule for each item. So you can keep it moving even if they kind of get stuck. Tells you exactly how to introduce it, what to do, and then you will administer the task. So I'm not going to start the timer because it's going to make us sit here for the full 60 seconds. But when you start the timer is when it allows you to click. So you can see if the timer isn't started, I can't click on anything. That's my cue that I have to make sure I'm starting the timer each time. When the timer ends, it will prompt me to mark the last item, which I have to do either by holding down on my mouse or right-clicking, and then it will let me mark that last item. Once this is done,
we're at the 10-minute mark, Sarah.
Perfect. You all are lucky because you get to do 2 of these. So in addition to mixed letter naming fluency, you also get to do, and you have to scroll way down, the RAN object. So there are 4 RANs available. You do objects. Form 1. Administration is exactly the same. This is a recording sheet that you do not need. And then here is your practice page to make sure the students know the items. And then here is the student-facing page. Again, you can use a guide for that. Most of the time, kindergartners are going to qualify for a reading success plan if they have a low phonological awareness score that comes from the diagnostic test, or if their RAN is low and their overall diagnostic score is really low. So those are the 2 ways that they would get an RSP. For kindergarten, we will most likely, for all students, give a Tier 2 reading success plan where reading specialists push in first semester, and then they'll start pullouts at winter once we have the second round of data. So I'm going to go ahead and hit stop and give you the opportunity